my esteemed panel. I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you, Caroline and Duke, for having this. Such an honor to be with three incredible visionary women. I was thinking about the three of you earlier, and I was thinking there's one thing they all have in common. They all really focused on ballet very, very intensely and danced in ballet companies, but had a start that was a bit of everything, and then really went out and did contemporary in a big way, in their own way. So, and your ballets are ballet technique, fierce and clear, but with contemporary twists. So you all bring something very fresh and modern to your work. So this program is going to be really exciting, this gala program. It happens on Wednesday, the premiere, and then Friday and Saturday matinee. But it will also happen in the coming seasons as well. So try to get to see these ballets. I wanted to start with Tyler because her ballet has been in the repertory already for a couple of months. But this is your first piece for New York City Ballet, highly acclaimed already, so very exciting. I remember rooming with you a very long time ago. You were like 19, I was like 40. And they put us together for whatever reason. And I remember Tyler's mom being there and saying, we were talking about dance and the company, she was brand new. And she was talking about Tyler, and she was like, you should see her choreography. And I was like, she's 19. What do you mean choreography? But you've been choreographing since you were like 4 or 5. Tell me about that bug that you had and how you cultivated it over time and how you prepared yourself for this first commission.
I think growing up, because I did a variety of different dance genres, and a lot of them you're encouraged to improvise. So obviously that was me being a dance maker, but not really even knowing it. And I didn't really consider myself, like I would have never said, oh, she choreographs, because it was like making dances for my mom's studio, which to me just felt like fun, meaning I would go and be at School of American Ballet or in the New York City Ballet, and then I would go home during the summers and I would choreograph like 10 dances for her. And by dances, I mean, 3-minute solos or duets or a group dance. So in my head, I didn't really feel like a choreographer, but I knew I loved to make up steps and dance. So I still don't know if I really call myself a choreographer, even though now I've done a few pieces. But I think that it just came from being very well-rounded and not just studying in ballet, because now when a choreographer comes in and they ask me to improvise, it's much harder for me than when I was younger, and that was something I did all the time. So yeah, I think that's how it basically started, and then I just needed one person to kind of trust in me and push me to say, okay, I think now it's time you choreograph. And I was like, I don't think so. But
Who was that person?
Damien Wetzel. Yeah. I will never forget, it was like my birthday. I think I was 24. And he asked me, I'd really like to commission your first work at the Vail Dance Festival. And I thought, make a work for professional dancers, because I had only really made work for my mom's students. And I said, well, I was going through a really tough time in my life, and I thought nothing can really get worse than what's happening right now. So, okay, maybe I should say yes, honestly. And then literally like 2 days later, I'm not even joking, it was announced in the New York Times that I was making a work, and I thought, oh, I can't go back now. So that's really how the first one came about. Yeah.
And since then, I remember you went on to do a piece for the Boston Ballet, and that's the piece I really saw, and I thought, oh, she's ready. I think she's ready. And we asked you to make this first piece, and you were very excited, obviously, and you studied music, you found your music. How did you find your music? What drew you to the music you chose? Yeah, mostly that.
So I started, for me, the most important thing is the music. As a dancer and as a choreographer, like, if I love the music, the steps just kind of feel like they're flowing out of me, and I don't have to try very hard to find what step should it be. So I started thinking, okay, what do I love to dance to the most? And for me, a lot of what I love is piano concertos. And I thought, oh, I'd really love, is there one that hasn't been used that's really like the perfect amount of time? And I knew I wanted to do something with different movements, not something that was like continuous. So another funny thing is I just literally searched in Spotify piano concertos, and this was the second one I listened to. And I thought, this is amazing. How has nobody done this?
And
then
what was
it
the
turns
piece?
out, it's full length two pianos, concerto for two pianos. And it turns out that both Justin Peck and Christopher Whelan have tried to choreograph to it. And I didn't find that out till much later. But Justin told me, oh, I love that piece of music. He was like, I tried to do it for Paris Opera, and I really didn't go well. I didn't like it, so you should try. And then Christopher Whelan told me, after I'd already done it, that he did it for workshop, and I think like Maria Karowski was in it. And he said again, I didn't like what I did to it, and I thought, okay, well, if these two didn't do something good, like, you know. But I just loved it. I thought that there was so much within that 19 minutes. Like, there was, sort of this beautiful adagio. There was this, you'll see a lot of what the two girls dance is very fun, playful. So I just felt like I could show a lot of my work within one piece.
And you chose Zach Posen to do your designs, and it was not a fashion gala, but Tyler went there. Tell me why you chose Zach and how you worked together with him.
I knew from the beginning that I did not want a costume that was going to restrict the dancers. Like, one thing I love when I'm dancing is that when it can feel like you're in the rehearsal room, the same as when you're in performance, and that the costume doesn't kind of like take that away. And so I knew I wanted to give that to the dancers. I wanted them to feel free and be able to dance the way they want to dance. So I knew I wanted some beautiful chiffon, something. That was all I knew I wanted. And it was at a gala, and I was sitting next to Zach, and he said to me, I know you're choreographing, so if you would ever and I said, actually, I just got commissioned by the New York City Ballet. Should we talk? And he goes, we should talk. Wow. And all I did was send him the music, and I said, I know I want chiffon, and I also said, and I know I don't want the costume to be the centerpiece of the choreography or the work. So if that's not something you want, I understand, but I just want you to know that I want it to be an extension of the dancers and to just make them look beautiful. And he said, that's what I want to do. Let's make them look as best as possible. So it felt very comforting knowing that he knows the company so well. He knows the individual dancers, so he knew, Mira would look beautiful in this color, and India and Emma, let's do this color. And so it felt very personal. And that's how it happened.
There's a very beautiful promo film. If you haven't seen it, you can find it on YouTube, of Tyler's piece. It was by Ezra Hurwitz, and the New York City Ballet commissioned this little promo. It's very beautiful, and it's Zach and Tyler and the dancers. I recommend you check it out. Something about your work with the dancers was very important that I noticed right away, was that you taught them. You handed over the information as a sort of a teacher mentor, and you shaped them, and everybody was lifted up in the choreography. Tell me about mentoring, teaching as you choreograph on your colleagues. Yeah.
I think that some of my teachers and mentors were so important to my development as an artist that I felt like it was my opportunity to kind of give back and share what I had, because it's from watching ballerinas. That's how you learn, from listening to coaches. And I felt like this was my opportunity to be in the front of the room to kind of give them everything. Or, I basically live with them every single day, and I see things that I would always want to say that could be helpful, but it wasn't my place. And I felt like, well, this is the time to give them any sort of advice. They can take it or leave it, but I really use the process to sort of, I tried to elevate each person. And
You did.
thanks,
Yeah.
I tried.
And one other thing that was very unique about you as a choreographer was, and the New York Times wrote about it, you wore point shoes every day as you choreographed, and we don't usually have choreographers that wear point shoes in the room. I mean, just in the room, showing on point the steps. So how do you straddle being ballerina and choreographer, and how do you mix that up? Tell me about that.
I know, it was so strange. It wasn't even like a thought in my head. And I remember Mira, the first day we were in rehearsal, she was like, are you gonna keep your point shoes on? And I thought, oh, like, yeah, I hadn't even thought of it, but that's the way I like to move. It's how I feel comfortable. So I thought, this is how I'm gonna make up my steps. I was in the room with them, doing it with them. And even when I was doing the male parts, I still was in point shoes just because that's how I move every day. But, you know, it was also kind of funny because if they said they couldn't do things, I would be like, I think we can make it work. So it was really fun, and I could show them the importance of, because I feel like reaching another level of being a ballerina is working with the feet. And it's so essential to taking you like the next step. And so I was able to show them that and sort of work on that.
So Tyler's piece has been seen a few times at New York City Ballet. Gianna's piece has been seen at the School of American Ballet 2 years ago for the workshop, but it will have its New York City Ballet premiere on Wednesday night. So this is your fourth ballet for New York City Ballet. You were the youngest choreographer to have ever been commissioned at the age of 18. And I remember hearing about you, and I was not in the company, and I was like, what? Peter's commissioning an 18-year-old? What's that all about? But then
Not the same thing.
I sat in the front row. I saw the premiere of your piece, Composer's Holiday. I sat in the front row, and I was sitting next to Baryshnikov. And we both were like, oh my God, it's so good. And I remember both of us came up to you at the gala afterwards, and you were kind of like, hi. Like
a deer in headlights.
And we were like, it was so good, and you were like, thanks. Like, it was just like, it felt overwhelming to you, but a little bit.
Yeah.
But what's been amazing to see in all four of these works is that you tend to gravitate, starting so young, towards younger dancers. You worked with your classmates in the first piece that you made at New York City Ballet, and kind of since then. And then you made this piece at School of American Ballet on students who are now in the company, who are going to be premiering this piece that was made on them as students, as professionals now. What's your thing with the youth? And what's your magic? Because what you do to them, you teach them something when you're creating on them, and you lift them up and you make them shine. And I don't know what it is.
Well, it's interesting. I think it touches on what Tyler was talking about, but kind of the opposite, like how you teach them and they're learning from you. For me, like starting out so young, it was more comfortable, obviously, to work with younger people. And yeah, and I just really, sorry. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but
You have some magic.
yeah, it's about
connection.
like, I think for me too, with younger dancers that aren't so like set in their ways just yet, there's like a vulnerability that can be brought out.
Tap them. It's like you
Yeah.
see something and you tap it open.
Yeah.
And you invite it out.
Yeah, and I want to be relatable to them, like also as like a young person, on the creative side of things, like to have that relationship with people that can also relate to me. I mean, I danced professionally, but not very long, because choreography kind of fell into my lap quite early, and I fell in love with it. So, yeah.
Something else I noticed about your 4 pieces, including tonight's piece, which we'll see, is you're very drawn to American composers and or American sounds. And also the dancers that I've seen you work with have an American style. And I never really realized that until diving in a little more to the piece Signs, which is the piece that we'll see. Tell us about that. Did you notice that in yourself?
No, it was so weird too, because we did an event called Dance Tracks where we kind of talk about, Caili and I did it together, and we talk with Andy Sill about our music choice and all of that. And he was actually the first one to bring it up. He was like, you know, you've only used American composers. And I was like, really? What? And he was like, why? You know, he asked me the same question, and I don't really know why. I think I'm just drawn to maybe, I don't know.
There's something,
I'm not sure.
this is my perspective,
Yeah.
there's a boldness,
Yeah.
and there's also this kind of minimal quality, like you're just like right there.
Yeah.
In what you give the dancers
Yeah.
and how you hear and put it out.
Yeah, and I guess too, like, this is kind of with all music, not just American composers, but I find in American composers too that there's kind of like an ABA storyline to a lot of things, like, and I love that in choreography, and you know, starting high, meeting in the mellowing out in the middle, and then bringing it back up. I just think that's kind of like the perfect storm in a piece. So I don't know. I just found that a lot of American composers kind of worked that way, and I guess that's what I like. I don't know. Yeah.
We were also speaking before tonight's event, and because I've been watching some of your rehearsals a little more focused since I've seen the premiere. And I'm saying, okay, there's 4 T's. Not the same, but there's an aspect of it. There's some Peck, there's some Whelan, there's some Robbins. There's Merce Cunningham, like in the sky. And then you said, yeah, I have references all throughout the piece. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there are references, I mean, throughout all of Signs. You know, there's a little bit of Serenade in there. There's some rubies. Olivia has this moment with the arms. Yeah, I think it was such a...
It's distinctively you, which
Yeah.
is just like you have a hint of something that you've seen that you're reflecting back in your own voice, which I think is really interesting.
I think I've just been really, really moved and touched by, you know, by those creators, and it literally just sticks in my head, you know, like it's something that is just inherently there, those kind of references to like my favorite ballets or my favorite choreographers. And I like to, you know, obviously make it my own, but it is also a little bit of an ode at times to, like, you know, just becoming, you know, on the creative side, and an ode to like those people that really kind of showed me the way in my own way. But
I remember you've done 3 fashion galas, and it's a unique experience because you have the baggage of the fashion that comes with it, and it sometimes works great, and sometimes it's challenging. And so after the 3rd one, we said, you won't have to do another fashion gala. And you were like, great. I'd love to do just a normal, regular ballet. So this came up, and Signs, and we were like, yeah, just wear your leotards. So So Gianna doesn't really have a fashion element. It's just very, very simple and minimalist. One more question to ask you. So 3 of the dancers that will be in this New York City Ballet premiere on Wednesday were in the original piece as students at the School of American Ballet. How have they grown in this piece? What are they doing now that is exciting you?
Yeah, so there are 3 original cast members in this New York City Ballet premiere, which is amazing. 2 of them are doing their original roles. Olivia Bell is one of the principals, and Mia Williams. And then we have Grace, who did the pas de deux for the school, doing another role. And they just have completely blossomed. Like, I mean, still every day it's like something new because they're so young. I mean, Grace is like 17 or something. Olivia, you know, they're just such young, youthful dancers that I feel like every day I go in and I just see something entirely different from them. And I feel like what's changed the most really is just like them like harnessing their talent a little bit more in the terms of just being more confident in general. I mean, I just remember being a student too, and like how, you know, like insecure I was, and how at that age too, like being a young, like 17, 18-year-old woman is like one of the hardest things to be, just in terms of, you know, your vulnerability and like how you see yourself. And I just feel like with them, it's like each day I feel like they kind of grow into themselves more, and it's great. Yeah.
I agree. Hi, Caili.
Hi, Wendy.
She's so far away, and I was joking, she's from Guam, that she's actually sitting in Guam, like way down there. So we've loved having you. This is your first piece at New York City Ballet. We've had you on our radar for a while. And I've been getting to know you a little bit. I wanted you to just talk about how did you go from Guam to New York City, and what was that journey like?
Yes.
As a dancer.
Yes. So I grew up on Guam. I started doing ballet when I was 7. The owner of the studio that I grew up was a principal with Houston Ballet. So I had that incredible, you know, luckily pretty great training on an island until I was about 14. And he unfortunately left the island, and I kind of had like a lack year of training. So the woman who was kind of teaching me private classes was like, hey, if you want to do this professionally, you'll have to leave the island. So I sent my VHS audition tape to Ballet Academy East and miraculously got in, and that's kind of how I ended up here in New York City. Very large leap.
Why did you choose Ballet Academy East? Do you know? Can you tell us?
Yes.
I mean, it's an amazing school.
Yes.
And I just love that you were like, I'm going there.
So I wish I could have found that out on my own. I did not. I was actually attended Boston Ballet summer program in 2005, and I mentioned to one of the friends I made that summer, I was like, hey, I'm moving to New York. I'm gonna try to see if I can dance, and I was just gonna take open class at Steps, honestly. And she was like, no, Ballet Academy East. And I was like, okay. So that's kind of how, it was really so incredibly lucky that I ended up there, and they really retrained, they just taught me how to dance.
That's serious technique in that school too, so.
Yeah.
And I know you grew up doing lots of different kinds of dance, just like these other amazing choreographers. But you were very, very serious about ballet, and then you joined some ballet companies. And then you ended up at BalletX, which is a contemporary ballet company. Tell me about your time at BalletX and how that switch happened physically as a dancer for you.
Yeah, when I joined BalletX, there were just 10 dancers in the company, and we would do 7 to 9 world premieres a season, which is I think back and I'm like, dang, you did that. But I got to be exposed to a lot of different choreographic processes. We would go in a show, we'd point shoes, socks, barefoot. It was really sneakers, little bucked. It's, you know, it was everything. And so I found myself naturally with every season that progressed with BalletX, I found myself thinking what I would do if I were in the front of the room. So it organically really happened in that way. And I decided, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna try this really scary thing. And I reached out to Christine Cox, the artistic director and co-founder. I was like, hey, I wanna choreograph. If there's anything that's coming down the pipeline, I'll literally make anything. And she immediately wrote back in like 30 seconds. She was like, hey, how about you do a piece for the Barnes Foundation and here in Philly for our pop-up. So that's kind of how it started. You know, I got really lucky and I got to figure out and learn the craft on dancers that I was so close with and I knew really well in a very safe environment.
Similar to these guys, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I feel so fortunate that's where I kind of figured it out, you know, and it really is it's a learning curve trying to run the front of the room and make dances and see what you like, see what you don't. It's really like trial and error, so I feel so lucky to have done that there.
And similar to Tyler, you danced in Vail with BalletX, and then Damien commissioned you to make some work in Vail and got you going. Tell us about that too.
Yeah, so Damien and Heather have always been huge, you know, just godsend, so supportive of my work. And the first time we were honoring Damien at our annual gala in Philly, and they saw a short duet that I made, and he and Heather both liked it and brought it to Vail, and it was really the first time my work was seen outside of Philadelphia. And, you know, they've just been, I'll never be able to thank them enough for kind of the doors that they've opened for me choreographically to get my work out there into the world. And I know they're a big contributing factor to how I got here. You know, Damien mentioned my name to Alicia Grafmack, who's the head of the dance department at Juilliard, and one of the choreographers for new dances was unavailable, and she was like, hey, would you be interested? And I was like, and because of that piece for Juilliard, Adrian, who's director of the Institute here at New York City Ballet, saw my work, liked it. I got to make a piece for the Institute, and you know, it's crazy how life happens that way.
What did you learn from working with New York City Ballet dancers? It was the company dancers that you worked with, correct? Yeah?
Yes.
What did you feel connecting to them? And I mean, that's the important thing with the Institute is that the choreographer feels a connection to our dancers and understands them enough to make interesting work on them. What did you learn from them? And what do you think you brought out of them?
Yeah, so I was 7 months pregnant when I did the fall session at New York Choreographic Institute. I basically could only do a deep squat, and that's pretty much the extent of what I could do movement-wise. So I really had to like lean in on the dancers that were in front of me, and you know, the 5 dancers that I had were incredible, and it was amazing to work with these ballet dancers that could do so much more beyond my own body, even if I wasn't pregnant. That it was cool to see the range of what I could create. It was really the first time I got to work with fantastic ballet, like really fantastic ballet dancers, yeah.
And you got your commission, you chose your collaborators, and your music. Your music was foremost. Saint-Saëns.
Yes,
Cello
Cello Concerto #1.
Yeah. And your designer that you're working with is really amazing.
Gilles Mandel, fantastic designer. I luckily found him, Mark Happel, the director of costumes at City Ballet. You know, I am not fashion forward at all.
I know, I was like, just look at Vogue. Just go pick up
I
a
got
Vogue.
Wendy,
And
I
you
got
were
an
like,
issue. I did, and my husband was like, what is this doing here? But luckily, you know, I met Mark, and Gilles was one of the top people that Mark recommended because he had worked with the ballet 2 times prior, but never for the Fall Fashion Gala. And so I Googled Gilles, and I fell in love with his dresses, and I felt like it was just made for dance. He just understands the body so beautifully well. So yeah, it's been really fun with him.
And Tyler's in the piece. Tyler's doing choreography and ballerina-ness that night. There's something interesting about do we want to talk about the costumes, or should we wait?
Maybe we leave it as
We'll
a surprise.
leave it. Surprise. Get your tickets. Because there's a very beautiful element to the costumes that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's been the imagery of that costumes and your idea and the music. It's doing something to my imagination, which I'm very excited about. I'm so excited for Wednesday's gala, Fall Fashion Gala, New York City Ballet. But this program also goes on Friday night and Saturday matinee this week. And these ballets will continue to be in the repertoire. So if you don't see it this time, I think Caili's goes again in the spring. And yes, we love you guys. So thank you. And we're honored to have you making work with us, and very excited for your gifts. So thank you all. Thank you.